Jewell. Today I am here with my May wrap-up. I read enough books this month to make it an independent wrap-up, so 2 months in a row we're doing well. Let's keep the momentum going. If you've been following along with my wrap-ups, you know this year's been a struggle, so yeah. The first book that I finished on the 1st of May, and that book is called Snow Gloss Apples by Neil Gaiman, and I didn't give this one a rating. So this one is actually a very short graphic novel. It's only about 100 pages, and it's essentially a Snow White retelling, and this one kind of takes an interesting twist because it's in the perspective of the not so evil stepmother. Which, don't worry, that's not a spoiler, that's from the blurb at the back. I quite enjoyed this one. I really only picked it up because I wanted something to read while I was waiting for Powerful to arrive at my door. And it was fun. It definitely kept my attention. The art is beautiful. Like I said, it's a graphic novel and the art is absolutely stunning, and I like the little twist on the story that the author did. I didn't give it a rating because it's a short story and I just felt like there wasn't enough for me to rate it. I've kind of decided not to really rate short stories and novellas unless I really love it and I want to give it a high rating. But it's good and I definitely do recommend checking it out if you're in the mood for a Snow White retelling graphic novel. The next book that I finished on the 3rd of May, and that book is Powerful by Lauren Roberts. It is the novella between Powerless and Reckless in the Powerless trilogy, and I gave it 4 stars. So I can't really go into detail about what this is about if you haven't read Powerless yet, because it's a bit of a spoiler, I guess, kind of. But this novella kind of just shows you another character's point of view whilst Peyton was in the trials during book 1. So it takes place during the same time as book 1, but it's about a different character and their story whilst Peyton was going on her journey. It's a very good novella. It made me feel a lot of feelings. I was sobbing by the end of it, and if you've read it, you know why. I do recommend this trilogy if anyone is interested, especially if you're kind of like me and you haven't read Hunger Games or technically Red Queen. I did read Red Queen, but I didn't really like it. So if you haven't read those, this book's kind of fun because it takes so many elements from those that, I don't know, it's like a new twist on it, I guess you could say. So I would recommend it, but you have to read Powerless before reading Powerful because it's the novella, so you know, you have to. On the 6th of May, I finished Death on the Nile by Agatha Christie, and I gave it 3.75 stars. Basically, this is just a whodunit murder mystery set on a cruise ship that is on the Nile, so we're in Egypt, and it was pretty interesting. I guessed who the bad person was, and overall, it's very strange because you read it and it's almost kind of predictable and cliche, but also Agatha Christie is literally basically the creator of the murder mystery whodunit genre. So it's not a cliche because she made it. Just reading it as someone in 2024, it feels that way because so many other books have taken inspiration and like literature has just gotten better and better. So it's an interesting experience. If you choose to read this, I do recommend it. She's a wonderful author and she's that popular for a reason, you know. But if you do choose to read this, I would definitely go in with a grain of salt and read this as if you are reading it in the year that it was published. You need to put aside any other ideas from other mystery thrillers and things because this was the first of its kind type of thing, so you can't be expecting today's twist, if that makes sense. It's good though, and I definitely do recommend it. Like I said, 3.75 stars. It was really great. Next, on the 9th of May, I finished So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens, and I gave that 3.5 stars. What this book is about is essentially what happens after the happily ever after in a fairy tale. That's kind of how it's described. So basically, we start chapter 1 with the main character Eric killing the bad guy and fulfilling the prophecy and then becoming king of the kingdom where he killed the evil ruler. And then we kind of follow his story of what happens after the prophecy is fulfilled, how he and his little group are dealing with the adventure that they had gone on prior to it. And then Eric is dealing with and coming to terms with the fact that he has feelings for his best friend, Matt. It's a very cute story. I read it physically. I would recommend the audiobook because the writing style of this book is just quite quirky, and I feel like it comes across a lot better when you hear someone narrating it to you because it sounds more like a speaking style, whereas reading it, if you don't speak the way that they do, it sounds kind of cringy. So I would personally recommend the audiobook. Unless you read it and you find that you speak the way that they do, then reading it physically would be fine. It is in general just very fun. It wasn't the best, most fantastic book I'd ever read, but it also wasn't anything too bad. It was a mediocre read. It was a good fun time. It's a great turn your brain off book, and honestly the cover is enough reason to pick this book up. It's a stunning cover. Next, on the 14th of May, I finished Out of the Blue by Jason June, and I gave that 3 stars. This book is about a mermaid called Ross, or merperson. Sorry. This is about a merperson named Ross who is coming on their journey, and they have to be on land for a month and help out a human. And then the human that Ross is helping out, his name is Sean, and it's kind of just their story about how Ross is helping Sean on a little thing. I don't want to say what it is just in case it's spoilers, but Ross is helping Sean, and then it is a LGBTQ romance, so there is a little bit of a budding between the two of them. They get emotions for each other, and yeah. It's kind of like the previous one where it's really fun and good. I personally kind of got bored really quickly with it, and the ending was not what I personally wanted. It wasn't a bad ending, and for the characters it made sense. However, I didn't like where the ending went. In general, would I recommend this? Yes, I think I would recommend physically reading it over the audiobook because I didn't like the narrator for Ross. It is dual POV, by the way, between Ross and Sean, but I didn't really vibe with the audiobook. But if you're struggling to get through it, the audiobook, you can really speed through it. And then, you know, I would recommend, because this is kind of just a very far-fetched Little Mermaid retelling, except Ariel is a non-binary merperson named Ross instead. The next book that I read, I finished on the 19th of May, and that was None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell. I'm not going to go in depth about it because I did talk about it in April. I re-listened to the audiobook with my boyfriend, so we buddy read it together, and all my previous thoughts from last month still stands. It's a really, really great book, and it's very fun, and I definitely recommend it. The next book that I finished on the 21st of May, and that book is The Only Survivors by Miranda, and I gave that 1 star. Basically, what this book is about is a group of friends survived a terrible accident together, and then every year, the week anniversary of the accident, they would stay together at a beach house to make sure that they'll keep a promise or something. Honestly, it was just really, really dull and boring. Nothing really happened, and I guessed who the bad person was quite early on as well. In general, would I recommend this? No. I think if you want to read a Miranda book, I would recommend picking something else up. I haven't read any of her other books, so I don't really have anything particular. However, this one I don't think would be worth your time. If you're interested in her, I'd recommend picking something else up because it's just not worth your time, in my opinion. The next 2 books that I finished is a part of a duology, and I finished the first book on the 28th of May, and I finished the second book on the 31st of May. The first book I gave 4.5 stars, and then the second book I gave 5 stars. This duology is now one of my favorite books ever, and I'm kind of in a bit of a book hangover right now because of it, and that is none other than the Shepherd King duology. Duology. So book 1, One Dark Window, and book 2, Two Twisted Crowns, they're insanely good. The vibes are immaculate. The magic system is so unique and great and wonderful, and genuinely just, it's such a good series, and the characters are so wonderful, and it's so interesting. And I really enjoyed that book 1 was kind of more stealthy and like sneaky and slow, and then everything in book 1 built up to just pure action in book 2. Like, I could not put book 2 down. And basically in this book, I went into it fairly blind, so I'm going to very briefly describe this, but essentially Elspeth has gotten the infection which has given her magic, and then she joins a group in order to find a bunch of the Providence cards in order to make the infection go away. And there's a mist which is essentially poisonous. Like, when you breathe it in, it kind of like, it drags you in and you die. So that is what the story is about. It's very interesting. I didn't explain it very well, I'll be very honest with you. It's a gothic fantasy romance. Romance is definitely more of a subplot, but like a heavy subplot. And in general, like, just read it. It's such a good duology, and like I said, the vibes are immaculate, and it's just such a fun time, and I'm so sad that it's over. I immediately put the audiobooks on hold at my library so that I can just read them again. They're very good. I 10 out of 10 recommend, and they're adult fantasy. However, they're easy enough. If you're a beginner in fantasy, you can definitely pick it up with fair amounts of ease. Like, you don't need to be a seasoned fantasy reader to pick this up, which is really great as well. I love it so much, and the characters are wonderful, and please pick it up. Thank you. And then the final book that I finished this month, I also finished on the 31st of May, and that would be Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. I gave this book 4 stars, and essentially what this is about is 6 very different people group up and go on a heist. One of them's a witch. It's a fantasy. There's a lot. Honestly, everyone watching this has probably read it already. I feel like I'm the last person in the world to pick this up, but it is a fun book. It's a part of the duology. I'll finish the next book next month, but I would recommend it if it sounds like it's up your alley. It's well written, the characters are great, and it's just a fun time. I recommend the audiobook because that's what I listen to and I like it, but honestly, you'll be fine either way. But yeah, I recommend it even though everyone's probably read it already. In terms of DNFs, I only DNF'd 1 book this month. I DNF'd it on the 16th of May, and that book is Your Blood, My Bones by Kelly Andrews. Essentially what this book is about is the main female character goes back to the farmhouse that she grew up in to burn it down, but then she finds her like childhood best friend tied up in the basement, and his main goal is to kill her. It is a dark gothic fantasy, and the reason I DNF'd this was because I personally just couldn't click with it. It was one of those books where as soon as I closed the book, I'd forgotten everything that I just read, and then I'd pick it up and I was very confused about where we're at. The book itself, to me personally, very much felt kind of like I picked up book 2 in a series without reading book 1. I was very confused. I think the mysteries that we weren't meant to know was written in such a way where it felt like we were supposed to know them. So in general, I was just very confused a lot of the time, and then I was also just kind of bored too. I was very upset about the fact that I DNF'd it. I DNF'd it about 46%, by the way, which is page 165, but it wasn't really my cup of tea. That being said though, I am going to probably pick it up again at some point through audiobook because I was reading it physically. I think maybe listening to it would help me get more into it, like having someone else say it to me. But in terms of like actually sitting down and reading it, me and the book did not click. It wasn't happening. So it's unfortunate, but you know, it is what it is. In terms of if I would recommend this book, I do think I would still recommend it if you think this is your type of thing. If it sounds interesting to you, give it a try, but you know, just keep in mind that my problems were my problems, but you might have them too. That was everything I read though in the month of May. As you could tell, I finished a lot of books on the 31st because I was at 8 books and I was determined to get to 10 because that that means 10 books 2 months in a row, which is very exciting. In general, I think it was a pretty good month. I found the Shepherd King duology, which I'm so thankful for because I'm obsessed. How was your May? Was it as good as mine? I really hope for your sake it was, and I hope that both our reading years are just gonna go up, 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 up from now on. If you like me or my videos, I would really appreciate a like, comment, and subscribe if you feel like it. I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. Bye.